Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. This is what it's all about, bro. All right, cool. It's all ready. It's live on YouTube. We're live on YouTube. I'm going to play the music first because that's what we do here. Case file 49 today. Just check your mic. Check, check one. I got to put that on mute. You're looking good on camera today.
Oh, thank you.
I don't think you should be in charge of this. Why do you love the Christmas music so much? What? All right, ready? Let's get the show started. Intro in 3, 2. Welcome to Nightmare365.
This is the center of weirdness for the entire planet.
There's tons of unsolved mysteries out there. Witches still exist.
What about monsters?
Do you believe in ghosts?
Bigfoot is not out there.
Bigfoot is definitely out there. UFOs are real.
UFOs might be real.
Do you believe in conspiracies?
I consider myself a conspiracy theorist.
I want to believe in all these case files.
Trust no one. The government lies to you.
We're just two brothers exploring the unexplained, mysterious, and spookiness that lives among us. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Center of Weirdness, known as the Nightmare365 Radio. I'm Matt, alongside my brother Greg, the skeptical sidekick.
What's up, beavers?
What? Beavers? Beavers?
Yeah, the beavers.
You don't even know what this is from.
Seriously?
What is it from?
Teen Wolf?
Yeah, the shirt I'm wearing is from Teen Wolf. Fright Rags. Shout out to Fright Rags. They make some good stuff. It's nice and soft.
1985, huh?
85 it came out.
I thought it was 86.
Get your stuff straight.
Hey, man.
Just get your stuff straight, bro. That's all I'm saying. All right, so today on the Nightmare365 Radio, the radio voice. So we just wanted to first start off and just saying, thanks for tuning in and making us, your listening podcast, radio, whatever it may be. But follow along with us by visiting our website, Nightmare365.com, because that's where you can find all of our information from our P.O. Box, phone number, mailing address. Well, P.O. Box is the same thing. So, yeah. But all of our contact information's there. And then also our email. So if you have any stories, whether it's for our Weekday Weirds, some new case files, and just some stories that may have happened to you that you may not share with anybody else, if you'd like to share with us, because we're always looking out for those new weird stories. So that could be all done at our website. And then make sure to subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, where every Wednesday you're going to get a different Weekday Weird. And then every 2 weeks we have the show that we do live on YouTube. So that's a good thing. So follow along, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. You'll be keeping up to date with us. Right? Right, G?
I love it.
You do love that. So today we're opening up the Erie Vault, and we are talking about Case File 49, TWA Flight 800, the conspiracy that is behind this air disaster. I'm kind of torn with this one, but I'm also freaked out.
Why are you torn?
Because there's a lot of information always with any of these case files that we do, but watching documentaries, reading some support, reports that are out there, just eyewitness testimony that we're going to kind of go through. I do believe the findings, but then there's also a lot of misinformation or left out details. And I guess that's why it's always a conspiracy when it comes down to it. When, this stuff happens, It's just, I don't know. I don't want to think that, our government agencies like the FBI, the NTSB, anybody else that does or works on, these departments kind of are bought off, or they're doing us justice.
I don't think they're bought off. I think there's another aspect behind it.
You think it's just different departments, right? So you're the head guy or woman, and then you have control over this, and then me or you may just be a worker, and we're not knowing the full picture.
Yeah, you're not in on it.
So I don't know. I just find that it's tough, and I just don't want. I don't know. Why can't just people be honest? That's really the big thing.
This is why you don't fly anymore?
I don't fly. Well, I haven't flown in a long time, but I'm gonna be flying.
You flew what? Around this time, right?
When?
TWA flight 800
In July?
of 1996. Didn't you go to Australia then?
No, it wasn't 96.
Oh, okay.
I think I went to, no, because when this happened, I was in middle school. I didn't go till,
I was 10 years old.
Yeah, I didn't go to Australia until I was in high school. So
okay.
yeah, I don't know. I didn't really think about it or really care back in the day about, you know, this kind of stuff. But now, you know, it's more, you know, I don't want to die.
Well,
But then I also wouldn't want to think that people out there, you know, could just not either not do their job or just say like, ah, fuck it, somebody fucked up, and then we have to cover it up.
happens all the time.
I get it, but it's still like, that's why the older I get, the more I don't really give a shit what people say or what people do, because most people have their own agenda.
Yes.
And most people kind of lie. And you see it in stuff like this when they had a committee, when they testified, you know, in front of like the whatever Congress, Senate, and they were saying like, oh, you know, there's a lot of witnesses, which there was like 600 and something witnesses, but we
can't trust them.
Yeah, you can't trust them. So it's like these politicians, and that's why, again, I hate politicians. But anyway, let's just jump into this and just give a backstory on this whole disaster, you know, about the TWA 800 flight that ultimately went down. So this happened on July 17th, 1996, and then TWA, Trans World Airlines, and it was a Boeing 747.
Huge plane.
Huge
It's like
plane.
Air Force One, basically. Like, people know that comes up in the front.
Yeah,
so basically, they have a 2-deck.
I love that. I used to love those planes as a kid. I remember having like a little model, like almost like the micro machine. What are they? The
Micro machines?
Yeah, they're like cars, but then we had the planes.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing those planes and thinking they were like the coolest things.
Well, now they have like the double-decker throughout the whole plane now.
That's cool.
You know?
So, yeah, this flight, it was just touched down, I think, a couple hours before, and they like refueled it, touched it up. It just came from Europe, and now is here in Long Island at JFK Airport, and it was going to take off, and their final destination was in Rome, Italy.
Yes.
But they had a first stop, I guess, in Paris, France. Like, that's where it was heading to. That's, I guess
flight.
Connection flight heading over from JFK Airport. So they were refueling. Anyway, on July 17th, 1996, the original flight was supposed to take off around 7 o'clock.
So imagine if it did take off around 7 o'clock. You think this would have still happened? Or do you think would have happened to another flight? So that's what I always think about when stuff like this happens.
I do too. Like
if you, even like car crashes, right? If you leave a second late or a second earlier or a second, you know.
How much do you actually miss in that time?
Yes.
It is weird to think about. When
like, have you ever been driving along and all of a sudden, like, something flashes, like, you know, right before your car or right after your car? Like, you just missed that. But imagine if you left like a second or two.
Yeah, but all right, now do you believe in stuff like, do you believe in fate or like destiny? You know, people believe in that kind of stuff.
I kind of do.
Do you?
So, I mean, you kind of have to.
Like when stuff like this happens, because I watched a documentary that was on
just your time, man.
Yeah, there was a documentary that was done here on the National Geographic Channel that was really well done on the TWA, you know, flight, and their conclusion was a lot different than. There's a documentary that came out in 2013 about the conspiracy behind the flight itself, and that had like a different take on it. But yeah, even that, there was 2 girls that were flying like for the first time, and then they called their parents and like, oh, TWA just offered us like this jump flight, and they were gonna give us money for it. You know, should we take the later flight? Imagine they did that, but they ended up not doing that.
Yeah.
That's kind of like,
you hear that stories all the time in 9/11, like, oh, I gave up my seat, or my business meeting was running late, so I missed my flight, or I should have been in the tower, but, you know, I had to bring my daughter to school, so I was in the
sick,
tunnel.
or I had to go to the bathroom and I was a little late.
Yeah, man, you hear that stuff all the time.
It is, and I always wonder, like, it's
just not your time.
Just not your time yet.
Nope.
Like Final Destination. Like, if you're supposed to go, you're supposed to go. It's going to get you no matter what. But, so getting back to this was on the tarmac. And during this time, people have to think about, in 1996, what was going on. Like, a few years earlier, we just had the bombing of the World Trade Center. And they just had somebody in custody recently because they were going to use bombs on planes. I forget what his name was. Yusef? Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he was in custody, and supposedly there was more bombs on planes otherwhere. You know, like that was one of their first things when this tragedy happened was, all right, this happened.
Yeah,
And
even
then
in
the
like
Olympics.
1992, like Ramzi Youssef.
Yeah, that's the guy's name.
Yeah, he was flying like through a helicopter like around Manhattan. He looked at the World Trade Center. He's like, "Don't worry, we'll be back."
Yeah,
Stuff like that.
that's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is also a time too where I guess in 1988, I forget what airlines it was, but the terrorist would check in baggage, but then not get on the plane.
Yeah, that's why like if you ever fly, right, and somebody gets off the plane's gonna get held up because they have to get their bags off the flight.
Yeah, and this is kind of what happened to this one, but it was just like a misidentification of bags because they said like there's a bag that's unaccounted for. And the person isn't on the plane, so they had to keep it on the tarmac, and it was supposed to, take off at 7:00, and then it didn't end up taking off for like over an hour, or right about an hour. And when they finally found the person was time. So you think in July, like one of the theories was, I mean, we can go through all the different theories, but just give you a back, story on it. Anyway, this plane takes off, an hour late. It's up in, the sky, and then 12 minutes later.
Yeah, 12 minutes after takeoff, it explodes.
Yeah, it explodes. And then there's a lot of different theories going from here, what actually happened. And
well, because it was like, if you picture it, it's a July summer night. People are on the beach. It's right off Long Island. So there's beaches right there.
There is.
That's why there's so many witnesses to what happened.
Yeah, and they said there was over 600 witnesses from different reports. Obviously, you get different numbers depending on what you read, but from what I found, it was around 600, people looked into this. And I'll pull up some information up here for us to look at, and then how many the passengers on board? There was 212 passengers, 18 crew people, and then all of them died. So there was total 230 people on board. There was no survivors from when this actually exploded over the right next to Long Island. It wasn't really that far. Obviously, they were only like 16,000 feet up in the air.
Yeah, not that far. A couple miles out.
And so when this happened, there was a lot of different reports, because I do remember this when we were younger. Obviously, I was in middle school when this happened.
I just remember seeing like the news the next morning, like just I guess you could see pieces of the plane just like floating.
Yeah, I do remember like the night before, or even like, just throughout the years, you just see like the burn, like it's on fire in the water, and they're showing it. Yep. And I do remember a lot of different reports that were coming in. They said terrorist, they said it was a bomb. They said one of the big things that did come out was there was missiles. Somebody fired a missile from like the shore of Long Island somewhere. So that, again, that dates, goes back to the terrorism, where we were kind of supplying, weapons to these terrorists who eventually came over here, and then 9/11 happened years later. So there was a lot of speculation that was going on, but no one really knew what happened. And obviously they're pulling out bodies, wreckage for the next couple days, months, and like really putting it together. It wasn't until like November that the investigation started to, I wouldn't say wrap up, because it felt like
it took 4 years.
Yeah,
for their final report.
For the final report, but they had like a lot of the wreckage and everything too. And from my understanding, it's still in the hangar, right?
What do you mean, till this day?
Yeah, like the reconstruction wreckage
I'm not sure.
The crash. It's stored in
But yeah, they take every piece, they lay it out, and piece by piece they put the plane back together. Yeah. And they said it was pretty, like, from the guy I talked to who like worked on it, said it was pretty much completely put back together.
Yeah, and you could see pictures of it too, and a lot of the documentaries show pictures of the bodies. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, like he said, because he was out there pulling like the debris out of the water, and the press like wanted to just get footage of the wreckage, but he said they had to put blue tarps over pretty much everything because the people were just still in their seats, just buckled in.
See, I know this is this is not how it works, but when I see stuff like this, and then you see, when you see the reconstruction of the wreckage,
yeah,
and you can see like the nose is still intact, like the full, rubber wheel is full intact, like nothing looks like damage happened to it. And then I always think, like, if I was on that plane, obviously if you're looking at the plane, you could see like, all right, it was fucked up. But and then even like our human bodies are kind of intact. I know it's like the pressure and internally we're done, but
Yeah.
you would think like somehow somebody would survive in something like this sometimes.
Well, I mean, the depressurization so much from being 13,000 feet up. Just think about hitting the water at that speed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just gonna. It's like jumping on concrete from like a 100 feet up.
I would hope if like something like this did happen to me, if I go flying, it's quick.
Yeah,
like,
you're not gonna feel shit.
Like anything.
Yeah, you're not gonna feel it.
I would hope
You'll probably
not.
pass out because of lack of oxygen.
Probably when the nose broke off, because that's what they said. Like there's two reports. Obviously, if you believe the conspiracy theory and the documentary that said, all right, when this explosion or whatever happened, the nose broke off.
Yeah,
and the nose fell, because a lot of the witnesses said the same thing. They saw two fireballs now like break apart. And one was the nose, the other one was like the main body of the plane.
Fuselage, yep.
Yeah, and in some of the reports, like when you look at the NTSB, like their findings, they said like the plane, which I don't know anything about this, like physics, anything wise, I'm too dumb with this stuff, but they said like the plane started to ascend, like it started to go up.
Yeah, I mean,
how did that happen?
Well, what was the famous? It was an Air France flight from like South America to Paris, and it was like struck by lightning, and it went like straight up and stalled, and then came right back down.
Yeah,
so I mean that has happened before.
So it's possible.
It is possible, but I mean when the nose breaks off, I think there's too much wind getting into the plane. I don't know. Like you're more likely to die when you hit the water because everyone just pancakes back. So if you're in that first or if you're in that last seat, you're getting pancaked by like 50 rows.
Yeah.
Of people just smashing into you. So that's what I think you die from.
Just like the impact?
Yeah, the impact alone. Like hopefully you'll pass out beforehand, but if you don't,
Well, yeah, they were saying too, like again, I'm gonna keep jumping back and forth between like some of the NTSBs and the FBI, because the FBI was really like the main, I guess, organization that was on scene.
Well, yeah, because they wanted to rule out like a terrorist attack, so that's why the FBI comes in.
Yeah, and they also had other different departments supposedly that was there. And, we're only going on what the news and findings was, and they had a lot of wreckage. Like the main wreckage was scattered on the ocean floor about like 4 miles and, like and about 3.5 miles wide. So, I mean, it's a pretty big area to cover. And that's why, it took so long. They finally did find, the black boxes, the voice recorders and all that. Didn't really come back with much. Like the only thing I got out of that, the report was that there was 2 gaps. Like I guess it was just like cut off. Like there was no sound. Like when like the communication was going on. So you hear them like talking and it was like nothing, and then all of a sudden, again it was like, and then comes back on. And the findings, which they said why that happens, was because there was something electrically that was going wrong and shut off. So it does make sense with their overall findings. And I guess we could, say what that was. Like the overall, if nobody knows, like the overall findings of what they said was that the flight was on the tarmac for so long, it was so hot, and they didn't fill like that main fuselage up. And normally, like if there was a flash and that thing was filled, like nothing would happen, right? Like it would have just went out. But there was like an ignition point that happened, but that since that fuselage, that main fuselage wasn't filled all the way, like them sitting on the tarmac and they had the air conditioners running the whole time, the air conditioner unit was underneath that fuselage and it was heating up like to the point. And they did the findings, like there's videos out there, you could watch them do these studies where they show you exactly their theories and like what happened to it. So the fuselage, the middle compartment was not filled all the way, and then it was heated up by that air conditioner unit and it was producing all these vapors. And then eventually, like they showed the wiring inside. They're like, all right, well, that alone is not going to do anything, because it's kind of, I don't know if it was just a flight simulation and nobody was on it, because they did the same exact thing where they didn't fill like the middle, fuselage up, and they had the vapor, and they were like, it's like well beyond flashpoint.
Yeah.
And it was like scary. I was like, get me the fuck off of that plane.
I mean, yeah, it's just short circuited and created like a little spark, and boom.
Yeah, and they said like that those 2 pauses that where you didn't hear anything was, one of the wires that was frayed, there was a couple of them, and it jumped. It
Yeah.
jumped into that connection, which then ran to the fuselage, and that caused the spark to ignite that vapor. And if anything, anybody knows about any fire, that's so true. Like if I went to a diesel, if I put some like diesel fuel out and then threw a match in it, it's not gonna like burn. But now if I took that vapor and I did the same thing, it will have a reaction. So that I do understand. That I've been trained on that kind of stuff, so I understand that and I know that. So that does make sense. When I saw that theory, I totally bought it, and I understand that, and it makes so much sense.
Yeah, even the captain talked about it prior to, like on the black box prior to it blowing up. He said like he was getting some like weird readings from
The fuel.
the fuel. Yeah. So I mean that does make sense.
It does. Yeah, and like that's all they really had to go on.
And you can't really fake that,
No.
black box recording.
No, you can't.
So I mean,
so then, all right, we're gonna go into like another aspect of it, right? Because then we have that data, and then the whole fuselage, the wreckage, and then what the FBI said, and that was like after the 4 years was kind of up. That was their main finding.
mm-hmm.
But then there's also theories like where this plane was, where it took off in JFK. It's a heavy airspace, and you can go like right where we are. You can go down to the beach where we are, and you could look over at Long Island. You could see JFK because you could see the amount of planes that come in and out of there. And you see at night, you could clearly see on a clear day how many planes are landing, coming in.
Well, yeah, like even over the park right here, right? You could see them coming over the park, Hartshorn over here, like just one right after another.
You can,
or you can even go online and see. Was it like Flight Tracker? You could see how many flights are above the United States at any time. It just looks like a blur.
You can
over like JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark because they're all within a couple miles of each other.
It is wild to see, and like that was one of the main things. But there's also in that water right next to Long Island, kind of on the outcoast of New Jersey, there is a training facility for the Navy, and they do a lot of training and things there. So one of the theories was that it was a friendly fire. They were just doing some testing.
Yep.
They put off a rocket and it shot up and it accidentally shot it down.
I mean, this theory holds a lot of weight just because of the eyewitness accounts. A lot of them saw what looked like what they described as either fireworks or like a streak of light in the air and going right towards TWA, and then the explosion happened. Now, you can look at that multiple ways. You can look at that as saying like, all right, it was a missile fired from a ship or from, the Navy, or you can look at it as fuel was leaking from the flight and that got ignited, and that's the trail that people saw up. So I mean, like, it could go either way.
It could. And one of the main things when, my takeaway was there was a couple people that actually came out for this theory. Like, that they said there was the whole scenario, which there was a retired United States Airlines pilot who came out and said this guy named Ray. And then there was also
Ray Barr.
Lar,
yep.
And then there was also a former press secretary of JFK himself, who came out and he said this whole theory. And they had his smoking gun or his proof was this radar image.
Yeah.
And the radar image was they showed like a blip, which looked like a ship next to the Flight 800 TWA, and he said that was it.
Yeah.
But they also proved, or they said, like, this does happen. I guess you could say, like, there was ghosting. I don't know if you ever heard of that term.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And he said, like, there's, the ghosting, the image, it's just like a reproduction of the same craft. So TWA 800 would have this other image that looks like it's following it, but it's actually the flight itself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how often that happens. I'm not a radar technician, but I mean, I'm sure people who are experts, I'm sure you can find out and ask them what they think or have them look at that data.
Yeah, and there's also, what strikes me, and I want to play a clip of this because this made a lot of sense to me. And there was when the whole documentary came out, where the conspiracy, Flight 800, in 2013, where they talk about like the whistleblowers stepping forward and all these former NTSBs, pilots, and then a lot of the witnesses that did see this were interviewed, and they said, "All right, there's more to this story than anything else." And the main FBI I don't know what he would be called, like the director at the time, or the lead guy on this case.
The lead investigator for the FBI.
And he was talking. I just want to play this clip a little bit, just for the simple fact that it kind of made sense to me, because they asked, the whole documentary is like, this is a conspiracy. All these people, used to work on the thing. And then he makes a good point. And then Megyn Kelly, who's interviewing him, because this is from Fox News, she says, why?
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, like, why is it a conspiracy? Why do people believe this? And then I'll just play this clip real quick.
I don't know, Megan. And if these NTSB investigators were on site and they had problems with, these are separate agencies. We do criminal investigations. NTSB does mechanical, pilot, non-criminal things. If they had problems with their chief engineers, and, they certainly could have come to me, or they could have been real men and been whistleblowers back then when, if they wanted to prove their conclusions, we could have actually done something about it, not 17 years later, now that they've got their government pension.
See, that's a good point. And then James Kallstrom, he was the lead FBI investigator on the case, and he just to me, like, why wait all these years later and then finally come out and be a whistleblower?
It's pretty simple, I think, but go ahead.
Well, like, he makes a good point. He says, like, oh, do they want to wait till they retire so they have their pension and everything else? Which makes sense, because you don't want to lose that. Now, if you come out like all those, when it did happen,
you're going to get fired.
You're going to get fired. You're going to get all that stuff.
And you're going to get blackballed.
You are, but it goes back to the people where, like, all right, if you see some shit going down, yes, I understand you want to, protect your livelihood.
Look at Snowden. Perfect example.
I get it.
I'm just,
No, trust me.
Example.
I totally get it. And it, like, when I watch this whole interview, it does make sense. And they kind of go back and forth. And it's like, all right, James Kallstrom, who was the lead FBI investigator, he said, he had a friend that she died on the flight. Like, why would he try to cover anything up? Does it go beyond him?
I mean, here's my theory, if you want my theory on, like, why you would cover this up. And why, like, let's say the U.S. Navy, if they shot down this flight, why you would cover it up as, like, a government,
right?
Like the agency, like NTSB, FBI, whoever. People would lose confidence, and you saw it after 9/11, in air travel.
Yeah.
Okay, so people would lose confidence in air travel. So think about, like, the economy that generates, and people traveling, going on vacation, spending their money. Think about, like, if they lost confidence in that, like, how would that affect the economy of the United States of America? And to say, like, that we mistakenly shot a plane down.
Yeah, I mean, people would be up in arms.
That would look so bad.
Yeah, trust me, it would. And that's one of the things.
Even if that's, like, the truth, man, like, like, yeah, we shot it down. Like,
I get it, and I totally understand that, but I guess I'm not that type of person. I guess it comes down to the fact that I would say, shit, we made a mistake. Like, there's ways now we can improve and rectify this. And I know people died, but it's like, it's better than
trying to cover it up.
But, yeah, because then this shit still, persists, and people are still talking about this till today. Like, think about how many years later this is.
Yeah.
And this is still going on.
I get it. I mean, but, like,
20-something years later.
Would it be easier to admit that, like, we messed up, or would it be easier to say, like, it's a faulty wiring? It was, unforeseen, unexpected. We couldn't do anything about, but now we have better safety regulations.
Yeah, no, it probably does look better on paper, in that situation. But then it also, like, the more I talk about this and the more we talk about this and like conspiracies and cover-ups, and the older I get, the more I don't believe when they, put out information. Because the same thing, like when we saw them testify and he said like, oh, there's, we have 600 witnesses that say they saw streaks of light, not just streaks of light,
But missiles.
people said they saw like 1, 2, 3 objects like heading towards this plane.
Yeah, like there was a guy flying a plane, like a little Cessna, at 2,000 feet, and he saw the missile go up, or 2 of them, he said, right?
Yeah.
2 of them go up and head towards
The plane.
the plane.
Yeah, and a lot of theories too, and like the one documentary they talk about the missile didn't hit directly.
Yeah.
And that's why you don't see like it kind of
Yeah, like
when
a
you
big
see
explosion
photographs
or burn mark.
Yeah, because if you see like the bottom of the actual plane, you see it almost looks like it blew out.
Yeah.
So in the findings, if you look at the full spectrum of their findings and what happened in the fuselage, and there's faulty wiring and it jumped from one thing to the next and it caused that spark to ignite the whole thing and blow out the bottom, it makes sense. But then they also said they did find traces of, I guess, bomb, whatever material in the plane, because there was a report and you watch the news of the time and they came out and they did say it. They found residue in the carpet, in some of the flooring in the seats with that bomb residue. And that was a whole big thing. And now people are like, oh shit, it's definitely terrorism. You didn't hear so much about the Navy until I forget when they I don't think it was right away that the Navy was brought into it until like they found out, until the former press secretary of JFK came out and said, the Navy did it.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing. But there was also a report too where they said it didn't hit the plane, but it exploded next to it and above it to cause this to happen. And maybe that was the ignition thing that really, that explosion somehow got in the plane, that sparked it, and then it ended up blowing it up. So that could be a possibility as well.
It could be.
With this whole factors. And then how do you discount over 600 witnesses that said this has happened?
Well, they said one of the other theories was like a meteor, a meteor, I don't know, hit the plane or exploded near the plane, and that's what people saw as like the flash.
Yeah. They also said too, when it broke apart and it was falling down, that was like the trail that people saw.
Which is bullshit.
I get it.
Like,
if you're close enough, and it doesn't seem like they were that far off Long Island.
No, they weren't. And if you think of, like, let's say you were a witness back then, right? You were on the beach, whatever you're doing, and you saw like the streaks of light go up and then also like a big explosion. Like, how would you try to prove what you saw? Because there was no really cell phone cameras back then. There was only like the handheld, like, big VHS tape recorders.
I don't know. And they did have a couple pictures that were thrown out on the internet, and they kind of discredit them. And, it's almost like they're your typical Bigfoot or UFO sighting. You can't really make it out or understand what the hell it is. It could be anything. But there was a report that was put out. There was a third party that the NTSB investigators, kind of brought forth. The International Association of Mechanics and Aerospace Workers, the IAMAW, submitted their own report to the public docket, when this was going down. And, they break down the sequences that happen and stuff. And, in the lower left-hand side of the plane where the actual bulge, or I guess you could say like the impact point or the explosion point was, and they said their findings was really disputed the NTSB's findings. So that's like a whole nother thing too when you get into that. And then this comes forward, and then other people that formerly worked on it said, all right, this happened. They didn't let me take pictures. Almost it looked like something came into the plane in certain instances. So it does make you think, and it does say like, all right, these people waited so long afterwards to come out because yes, they wanted to not be ridiculed. They didn't want to be fired, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I would have started putting together something beforehand instead of just like waiting the amount of time that they did, almost like 17 years later.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would have kind of floated it out or like leaked some information out to the press at the time. And then the whole thing too, like in the documentary where they talked about the
people breaking into the warehouse at night.
Yeah, stuff like, I don't know, like anything that could have leaked some information out to the public to say like, all right, this is, our findings. And I know somebody who worked on it and, they're in a small aspect of it. So they're not looking at the whole picture. They're only looking at a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, what they're doing, yeah.
But at the same time, like, all right, this person found out information like, all right, this is not anything that I was used to or, it contradicts everything that we were trained on. That's my only like hiccup with the whole thing. Like, why wouldn't they leak this out a little bit earlier?
I don't know. The same way like pilots get like not shamed, but deterred from
reporting
UFOs. Yeah.
I mean, I get it, and we do see that, like where you talked about,
like, because let's take for example, let's say you work in the FBI. You're like a low-level FBI agent, let's say. Yeah. You want to move up in your career. You want to get promoted to a boss. You want to do all these things. Yeah. If you come out and say like, "Hey, this is messed up. This is what's going on. This is not right." You think you're gonna get blackballed in the agency. You're not gonna get promoted. You may even get fired. So I do see why people don't come forward.
No, I get it.
Until after they're done. Like I do.
No, and I've seen it firsthand with people in different jobs that I had over the years, where it's like, how come you don't speak up? People
are just
afraid.
Shut their mouth and fucking I'll do that, no problem.
And I totally get it, because if you have a family, you have a livelihood, you don't want to see them hurt, but then you're also trying to provide for them at the same time. We all have bills to pay, so I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's just not my realm of thinking or my consciousness to say like, I don't think I could sit by, like, because I hate when like the little people get shitted on, or picked on, because it really does like piss me off.
It happens every day, man.
I know, and that's the thing that's frustrating, and it also makes me think that, all right, like, what can we do to fix this? And then,
like, you don't have any faith in the system.
I don't, and I don't care like who you are, what side of the aisle you are. All politicians are fucking dirty as shit.
That's like, I don't know.
I know I get back to that point all the time.
9/11.
Yeah.
You watch Building 7 fall.
Yeah,
that's like a whole nother one.
It doesn't make sense.
And what they say 30 minutes before on CBS or ABC.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they're going to bring down Building 7 with controlled demolition. Oh, we never said that, but yet the tapes are out there. So, like, anything you go back to, look at, like, the Gulf of Tonkin incident.
I know, but I just don't understand, like, if you're a reasonable person, and granted, everybody lies. I lie.
Yeah, everyone lies.
Everybody lies to a certain extent because you want to protect, people's feelings. You want to protect yourself.
Honey, you look great.
That's fucked up.
What?
You say that a lot?
No, but...
Hopefully she's not listening, man.
Hey, honey. Yeah, no, that looks great.
You look good. Doesn't look so good, man.
Take that shit off.
That's fucked up. You better not be saying it. Hopefully she's not listening to this episode. You're going to get a beating when you get home. But I get it. I get the mentality. But I also, like, in certain situations, if I fuck up, I want to be like, yeah, man, I fucked up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, man. Like, you have to. And I don't, like I said before, like, I don't think they wanted to admit that. Like, hey, the U.S. Navy shoots down one of their own planes.
All right. So with the FBI, we saw him, the lead investigator, James Kallstrom, and he said they really did like a thorough investigation of all the ships, all like the aircraft, anything that was in the area. They like accounted for everything. They looked at all their logs. I don't know how easily something like that, their logs could be
faked or doctored.
Yeah, faked or doctored or messed up with. So I don't know.
No, we didn't shoot anything. Put that shit away.
But then, like, wouldn't you say, like, all right, well, there was this missile on board, and now it's missing? Or there's, like, when people say there was 3 objects, like, where the fuck did those 3 go?
Yeah.
And if they did, like, the inventory check, all right, well, when it first left, it had this. You
would think so.
How easy was it for them to, like, kind of change that real quick before that happened?
I don't know if the FBI is going on and counting every single one. They maybe did their own internal count, and then the captain got word, and they were like, yep, just make it look good. Boom, we're good.
And then I also think about this, too. Anybody that was on this ship, and one of the ships that really, I guess, was it was the Dakota, right?
Yeah, in question. Yep.
It was the Dakota that was in question of, being the one that fired the friendly fire. How come no one on that ship has come forward?
I don't know. Maybe they think like they didn't do anything wrong. Maybe they think that,
Like if I was on,
they didn't do it.
I mean, I guess.
Because you don't know.
Well, yeah, you don't know too then, because then I also started thinking too, like, all right, well, say if me and you were on that ship and we were one of them, and then we were like, fuck, we're going to, like something's going to happen. But then like what would really happen to you? I think they would more get with the, the captain, the chief engineer, whoever else was really on that ship.
I don't know, man.
They wouldn't
maybe you would never hear of us again.
Well, that's what I started thinking. Like, all right, well, maybe we wanted to go forward and they found that out and that killed us, and we didn't, oh, this serviceman died, and and you don't put those connections together. And see, that's where I would like the I guess documentary to go into. I understand that they're interviewing these, former NTSB, people.
Imagine they get transferred
or some of these
somewhere
witnesses
else around the world, and boom, they get mysteriously murdered.
Right, or they
heart
died.
attack or suicide.
Right.
Normally, like in a conspiracy, maybe that happened.
But years later, I would want to do something. Say, like, I would just go and be like, oh, I'm just doing some research on the Dakotas. I don't know. I love that ship, of like where it started, like how it went, about. And I just wanted to do, and then you kind of like expand your research. And you do all this research on the whole thing, and you can show these people. But then you're like, oh, yeah, I need that. In July 1996, you guys were here. I want to learn all about that. And then you find out who is on the ship.
And they went missing.
And then you look at, all the people that were there, and you say, like, all right, and now try to piece that together. Like, I would want to see a documentary that goes into that as well, because that's an aspect that they didn't touch on.
No.
You never hear of, like, who is on that ship. Like, let's try to find some of the, like, even in the news, any of the news reports I watch, maybe it's out there and I haven't found it. So if anybody is looking into that, if you see news reports, send it our way.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, why didn't anybody do that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because you could look at it, like when we look at, because we're going to have a couple weekday weirds, and I'm sure we'll do a show on it too, but all the people that died mysteriously after JFK, that had connections to JFK in some way.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, why couldn't they find something like this with the TWA 800 crash?
I don't know. If you don't believe like the Navy theory, if you don't believe the short circuit theory, look up man pads.
Man pads.
Yeah, basically it's like a shoulder fired rocket.
Oh, okay.
Like a rocket launcher on your shoulder. It's what they call it. They're man pads. And you could easily shoot that from like the beach or wherever.
Yeah, but
that hit the plane.
Yeah, but they did say like they looked into that theory.
No,
and
I
they
know.
said like the whatever the kilometers was, I think it was 8 kilometers that had the range of like the man pad rockets. I totally thought of something else. But like if you're shooting that, right, it only has a range of like 8 kilometers. And then like the plane was like 13 kilometers away. So that was a thing that they said in the report I read.
Because if you want to believe a terrorist attack incident, that's
right,
the way you would do it.
But then that also goes back to my question: why the hell would they cover up the terrorist attack? Like why? Like what's their point of covering that up? Like that would be so much easier to say. Like even if you want to believe like the whole thing with like 9/11 was a conspiracy just to go into war, like that could be a whole thing too. Like all right, they already tried to bomb. In the basement of the World Trade Center. It didn't bring it down. They wanted to do more bombings. We know that they're suspected of doing these bombings. Now they just shot down our fucking plane. Wouldn't they try to turn that story around and say, like, all right.
No, because we were giving them weapons at that time. Like, if you look back at, like, Bin Laden's history, we treated him in a Marine hospital in, I forget which year it was.
No, I know, and you can go back all the way to the 80s when the Russians were fighting them, and then we were giving weapons into that, and like dicking over the Russians at the same time. And I understand that, but then if you wanted to justify a war on anything, this would be an easy way to say, like, all right, all these events are happening.
100%.
Like the military, let's just spin it real quick around instead of just like covering it up. Like, so this is why in the beginning I said I was torn, just for the simple fact that like, if the Navy did bring it down, I would just try to spin it and say it was terrorists. and then like get most of the people that were involved.
terrorism?
Yeah, just say it's terrorism. Now we're gonna go fucking fuck shit up somewhere else, and it'll give you that opportunity as like the Navy to spend money on war, at the same time like kind of like wipe your hands clean, even if you did it, you know. So that was like a whole nother thing where I kind of balance it out too. So I don't know. I mean, again, I don't know if I'm on one side or the other. I just need.
So you don't believe any theory, or you don't believe the Navy theory. You don't believe the wiring theory.
I believe most conspiracies, but this one, I don't know, man. I get it, and like I can't discount all those witnesses. That came forward, and there is reports out there, and you could read those reports. You could see them on video talking about like what they saw. And yes, I know most eyewitness testimony in any kind of thing, you're going to see it differently.
Yeah, you're going to see it differently. You're going to remember it differently. You're going to piece some things together that may not be pieced together, or you're going to remember what you saw, and then you're going to hear what somebody else saw and put those two things together as like what you saw.
No, true.
But like I would say like 60% of that is going to be true. And then 600 people, you can find out what's really true and what's really not. If 600 people saw the same thing, yes, they're all going to see it differently. However, their main story, their main general theme is going to be correct.
No, it should be, right? So that's where I get at the point like, all right, if all these people saw a streak go up and hit the plane, and
how can you discount that?
Yeah, like there's a lot of just reports of like one, but then there's reports of people seeing like 1, 2, 3 objects.
Yeah.
So then it makes me wonder, and then also like, all right, well, if the Navy did that, wouldn't they try to spin that around or have somebody, not them themselves, spin it around? Why didn't anybody talk to the Navy about this shit?
Sure, they did.
Yeah, I'm sure the FBI did, and when they went over the reports, and like the lead investigator again, James Kallstrom, said the same thing. We looked at all their logs, we did all like the inventory for it, and
well, like
it came up inconclusive. Like everything was accounted for.
Well, let's say you talked to the Navy. There was 3 missing, or even 1. Let's just say there was 1 missing.
Yeah.
You found this out. You go to your boss, because he has a boss, and say like, hey, we found this.
Right.
And your boss was like, we need you, to get rid of that. It's like, well, I really can't. Like, this is messed up.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, well, like, then you're done here. Like, you're fired. You're that's it.
There's always options.
What would you do?
I don't think I would care about a job enough, unless it's like this one, unless this was our full-time job. But I don't think I would care about a job enough where I'd be like, all right, yeah, I could live with that. I mean, unless they were going to come after me.
Yeah, what if they're going to come after you, your family?
I'd be like, I'm stocking up, son. Like
stocking up what?
It's time to go to war.
No, man. You're not going to know what hit you. You're like, how many, like, see, this gets in a whole, like, another, like, theory.
I'm popping them before they pop me.
Like, you're going to be eating something. You're not going to know what's in it.
See, that's fucked up, man. Now you're gonna make me look at everything I eat today.
I'm just saying.
If I stop at somewhere to get,
but
some
you
food,
don't know. You don't know.
You don't know that, and I guess
because like how many CIA black sites there are, right? That gets into a whole nother theory. But I'm just saying, like, look at Benghazi, right?
Right.
Benghazi. No one knew there was the CIA there.
Yeah.
Like no one. Like, what are you talking about? We have people in there. So like you don't know, like if they really wanted to come after you, the government to come after you, you're dead. You're wound up dead.
Are they watching us right now?
Probably, man.
You think so?
Dude, I googled something the other day. It pops up on my Facebook.
We're definitely being watched.
I talked about something. I didn't even look anything up. I talked about it. It popped up.
Oh yeah, that was freaky. I understand that you go into certain stores and things pop up as far as ads go, but
I didn't go into a store. I talked about it.
No, I know, because here's another example. A close friend of ours was talking to their brother in the living room, and they were talking about something, and he said later on when he went home, shit started popping up on his computer, and he's like, dude, I didn't search this. I didn't, like, look anything up. I I haven't even talked about this besides, like a couple hours ago in my brother's house. And he goes, I wasn't even at my brother's house searching anything. And it wasn't until he got home on his regular computer when he started looking at stuff up that this shit was popping up. And he's
100%,
like,
man.
He's like, dude, that was fucking freaky as hell. And that was like one of the first times that he said like he really understands now that they're spying on us.
Like, why we talk about this?
I know, and I know we talk about this all the time. And I know this shit does happen, and I believe this shit does happen. So if you
believe that, right, that they can spy on you, they can kill you, you don't think they can cover this up?
No, 100%. I think they can cover this shit up, and I wouldn't put it past it that they did or didn't.
Yep.
But at the same time, I don't know.
You want to believe people are good, and you want to believe everything's on the up and up. I get that.
No, because I said in the beginning, people are assholes, and most people I don't believe like what they say because people have their own agenda. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying like anybody listening is like that. You're all good people, but
you fucking assholes.
Wow.
You should go subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you like
we'll
this
have the government come after you.
That'd be great. That'd be great if I could hack in and make everybody subscribe to us. That'd be fucking
We just
awesome.
have 1 million subscribers tomorrow.
Yeah, that'd be great. But I understand all that, and I get it. And I do believe that could happen. I'm not saying that it can't, but I don't know. There's like the evidence, it makes sense. You know, when you read like a book, like when I was reading a lot about like JFK, like I would read a book and I'd be like, holy shit, that totally makes sense. Like they pieced it together so well.
Yeah.
And then I read another book that contradicts it,
yeah.
but it makes so much sense. And I'm like, all right, that makes so much sense. Same thing here. I'm having that same dilemma where I look at the reports.
They both make sense, yes.
And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like what they said could easily happen. Like we said, like, all right, ghosting doesn't seem to happen all the time, but it seemed, yes, it could happen. But then it's almost like coincidence after coincidence. Like, all right, well, this happened.
When's
and then this
enough,
happened.
yeah.
And it's like, all right, now we're just piecing it together. And then you bring in, I don't know. I mean, I guess we can keep going around on this one. I mean, this one's a tragedy that seems, to always get brought up.
Yeah, it sucks, man.
And
it really does.
I mean, I do remember just hitting this at home and it happening all the time when we were, like younger and watching this on the news, and it sucked. And it was like the same time, I think it was around the same time too, like the Olympics was going on. That bombing happened.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like terrorism things that were going on, whether they were foreign and domestic, like terrorisms. And that's where I just say like they could have put a spin on it and made it seem so much better than just like covering it up and wiping their hands away from it. So that's where like, I guess I'm still on the fence about the whole thing. But I don't know. What do you think just in terms of this whole thing? Like, I guess we'll, wrap it up and just say our final thoughts on the whole thing.
I really, from 600 Witnesses and that Amazon documentary,
yeah,
where they talked about like doctoring, like, and tampering with evidence. I think something fishy happened. I think it would have to be a missile from the Navy.
So you're just going with the Navy theory?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. There was definite tampering with evidence. It seemed like from most of like the witnesses, the former NTSB investigators that were on the team that were in this documentary. All these witnesses couldn't
make up,
make all the same story was there was an object. There was something there.
Yeah.
So whether it was like it had nothing to do with the crash, it could have been a UFO for all I fucking know. I don't know.
Maybe Bigfoot got shot out of a cannon and just ripped apart the hull.
That was funny. No, but yeah, I think there's definitely more to it.
That's what he did.
Why does your Bigfoot sound like that?
Like Chewbacca?
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't know what Bigfoot sounds like.
That's a weird Bigfoot, dude. But I guess my whole thing is there was a lot of fishy shit that went on, so that's why I'm still like unsure about this whole thing. And I definitely think there was a lot of, things that were left out.
Yeah, 100%.
And same thing, like, why didn't they bring any of the witnesses to testify?
Well, see, that was another thing, too. When they wrapped up, after the 4-year investigation, presented their findings to the committee, the guy spent, an hour going over how witnesses are incredible.
Right.
Like, I would be like, dude, move on. Like, all right, we get it. You don't think witnesses are credible.
Yeah, and you spent an hour about
You
that.
spent a fucking hour trying to
So-
convince us.
See, and that's where I would go and punch that guy right in the fucking face.
I would be like, dude, you weren't there. You don't know what I saw.
Yeah, I hate people like that. So yeah, that's where it also makes me question, like, what the fuck went on? Like, what really happened? Like,
Yeah.
how did this whole thing transpire? And like, we still don't know. And I guess that makes a really good conspiracy because we don't know what actually happened.
Yeah, it's sad, man.
It really is. So I don't know. Let us know your thoughts on this, about this case file 49, the conspiracy that is TWA Flight 800. And our next podcast show is going to be around April 28th, we said. So about like 3 weeks. Normally we do these about every 2 weeks, but we're going to have a little hiatus on that one anyway. So, but in the meantime, every Wednesdays we're releasing our weekday weird, so you can get them every Wednesdays. So make sure to follow along with us at Nightmare365.com, where all of our contact information can be found. And then subscribe to us on our YouTube, hit the bell for notifications. And until next time,
Stay spooky.